here we're coming along to now look at the edit or the ability to edit, hold, and recall requests. So starting with Voyager 7, being able to edit these types of requests depending on a couple of things, but being able to do this sort of thing in the circulation client. So what that means is that a library user themselves may not do this kind of thing in their patron information window that we were, or patron account window that we were looking at before we took a break. So it means that the circulation operator is being involved, the theory being that they are a little more aware of what needs to be done, why it needs to be done, and so on. So the kinds of things that we can modify are the level of request, that is title or copy, alter the location for the title level request, or the location group for title level request, modify the pickup location, adjust the expiration date, include comments. That would be appropriate. And we can use two ways to edit these requests. Operators will not be able to edit the patron who made the request or the type of request that was made. So the hold or recall request, that's going to stand, and the borrower who's made the request, that's going to stand. But we can be making these other types of adjustments. So with the two ways to edit these requests, we have one that starts through the item record, the second through the patron record. Before being able to do any of this, however, we have to have an operator in a security profile where this function is enabled. And there is this new checkbox that has been put in place for the circulation operators, or a revision, I suppose. Add, update, recall, hold request. So it's this update function that is now new for Voyager 7, and it's the piece that means that certain types of individuals are able to do that sort of work. Okay, and from here, going on to what we see. So here we're beginning with the item record approach. And in this example, the item record for the title Identity by Design has been retrieved in circulation. And we can see from examining the record that this item is charged to a user. And we know that there by the item status, and that there are 3 requests that have been made for it. When we look at or click on, in fact, let me go back one slide. If we click on the request maintenance button, so the one that's got what looks kind of like a wrench in it, we are taken to the request maintenance window. And it's here that we can see the patrons who have requested the title. We can see expires dates that relate to the individual request. We can see the type of, or the level of request, the type of request, how many items are involved, the fact that the request is active, and where in the queue are the particular individuals who've made the request. Notice here toward the bottom middle, the edit button that we're able to work on. When we click on it, it's going to then give us the opportunity to edit a particular request. So in this example, let us surmise that Carla, the person whose name is selected, has asked that the pickup location be modified. She'd like to be able to pick up the item at the branch library circulation desk rather than at the main library circulation desk. So when we click on the edit button, it takes us to the edit request window. And just to reiterate, we cannot modify the patron who's making the request or the request type. But we can be changing any of these other kinds of things. In this example, of course, we're saying change it to the branch circulation desk. As a reminder about what was done, I included a note that just said pickup location changed. As part of the workflow, I don't think that that's such a bad idea, because it's going to give a clue as to what happened. We might even put in who is exactly the operator that made the particular change. You might include date information, whatever kinds of things that would seem logical to you. Once we've made our various changes, we click on OK, and we get a message telling us that the hold request has been updated. And once we click on OK again, and this time in this little box that's popped up, we go back to the request maintenance window, and we can see that in this case the pickup location has changed. And we'll see also a note that that I included a little bit ago. So we're able to get a lot of information about this sort of thing. So let's take a look at an example of this where we've got, and in fact, going back to circulation, I'm going to retrieve a particular item that I've configured for this particular example. It's for a title that's called Dangerous Crossing. It is charged, and of course we're able to see who's the borrower. It's Mike Dykes, and that we have one request for it. Well, let's say that in this particular case, let's first find out who it is. Okay, it's Eric Wetstein who has made a request for the item. And yes, the expire date here has passed. Well, he still wants the item since Mike still has the item, and so he wants to make that particular change. So we request that the edit occur. And so in this example, we'll change the expires date to something toward the end of October. So I've now made that particular change. So there it's showing us the October 30th change. So I'm going to just say modified expires date. And I'll change maybe Eric also wants to pick it up at a different place. He wants to get it at the branch circulation desk. So I click on OK, and that whole request gets updated. And so we're actually able to see that kind of thing. And I probably should have included another note besides just the modified expires date, but also change pickup location. But so we're now able to see those sorts of things and be able to make those kinds of changes for this particular type of thing. Now, just going to go back to the slides, and we'll go to another example where we've been working with the item record approach. And in this example, both copies of The Men Who Watch Trains Go By are charged to patrons, and we can see that. But both also have additional, or in fact we've got one here that's showing a hold request. But both copies have additional statuses applied. Copy 1 clearly indicates that a hold request has been placed against an item, and by going to the request maintenance area, we can edit the request. So the thing that we can see about this is that in this example, our friend Steve has made a copy level request. And so that means that Steve has requested only copy 1, even though there is a second copy for consideration. To increase the chances of providing a copy of The Man Who Watched Trains Go By to Steve before his request expires, he's asked that the copy level request be changed to a title level request, because since there are multiple copies, title level means that a hold request gets made against both of those or all of the copies, and the first available then would be available to Steve. And so we can also, of course, extend the expires date and put in a comment, do all of those other sorts of things. And as always, clicking on OK brings up the notification that the hold request is being updated. And it's here that we then see that kind of information where it's gone from being a copy level request to being a title level request instead. So let's take a look at a couple of examples of this, or at least one example of this. I'm going to retrieve a title that's called Great Deluge. there we're able to look at this particular item. We can see that we have both items charged. That copy 2 has 1 request against it, and copy 1 has 3 requests against it. And so we'll go and take a look here at this one where we've got 3 requests against it. So we're seeing the kind of thing in relation to the copy level versus title level types of changes. Let's say that Meredith Atkinson wants to make that change to a title level request. She wants to change her pickup location and her expires date. She wants to do all of those things. So clicking on Edit, and so changing that to title level for items at any location. We'll change the pickup dates. We'll say the 15th of October and change this to our branch circulation desk. So changed request level, expires date, and pickup location. We get the message that it has changed, and that we now get to see what those sorts of details are. As always, we do have the ability to, our circ operator has the ability to be making changes to the order of the queue, and so I'd be able to put our friend Regina up there at the top of the list. Well, depending on what sorts of things we want to do. So using the up and down arrows there does give us that kind of opportunity. So that's showing you working through the item record. Now let's return to the slides and we'll talk about what happens when we look at things through a patron record. Go ahead and close out of that example and take us back here, and here we have the patron record for Napoleon Gully, and we can see from the screenshot that Napoleon has 4 requests in progress. And so then, again, by clicking on the Hold Recall Information button, we can begin the process of editing any or all of the requests. Here we see that we've got a hold request for an item that's called Novel in 3 lines. And it's currently the first thing in his list. And when we select, or with the item selected, we click on the Edit button that we find at the lower left corner, and of course it brings up the Edit Request window. So 2 different workflows to get to the same place. So here he's again requested that the pickup location be changed and that the expires date be modified. A comment included again, and clicking on OK brings us back to the patron request information window. Notice that Novels in 3 lines has now dropped down 1 level, and it's because of the chronological order of the particular request. And so it has just changed all of those sorts of things as we make our way through. Now, again, back over to the circulation request, or to the circulation client, and I will retrieve the patron record for Matt Ball. And we can see that he's got 3 requests active. Follow through on this particular entry, and well, we can see, in fact, that technically all 3 of these have, all 3 of his requests have expired, but we'll go ahead and edit just the first one at this point. So edit, and we will make a change in this particular case to the expiration date. We'll give him a date somewhere out there in October, since he's still waiting on the item, and we'll leave the rest of the things alone. So we've, in this case, changed expires date. So if that's spelled correctly, click on OK, and that hold request is updated. And notice there we can see that new service economy now has jumped down. Since we've got a few others, let's go ahead and adjust these as well while we're at this. probably a good idea to come up with a standard naming function so that you've got that text always in a certain way. And that way it would be easy to find, and everybody gets to do exactly the same kind of thing. And let's go with one more, and making that change. And so we've now updated all of Matt's requests, and that we see that they, in fact, all three of them, and that they're now in alphabetical order because the expire state is all identical. So that's giving us just a second way to be able to look at those items. Any questions about the editing or hold of recall requests? Okay, I'm going to take us back to the slides and move on to looking at the batch, suppress, unsuppress functions. For those of you who were with me in the cataloging session the other day, this will be a review. For those of you who have not seen this before, this will be new material. So with Voyager 7, we're able to use the pick and scan function to do a couple more things. Suppress and unsuppress holdings or bib and holdings records in batch mode. So this means that in addition to things like making bulk changes to specified item data, such as status type or location, this has been extended to include the options to suppress and unsuppress holdings and bib records. Item records with barcodes remain the key to working with these pick and scan functions. So let's just take into account a couple of scenarios. We have a circ operator who's participating in a project in which the library is preparing to withdraw a group of materials from the library and wants to suppress these items from view in the OPAC. That's one possible scenario. A second scenario, we've got the circ operator preparing to move a group of items to a new location, and in the interim wants to change the status of the item records and temporarily suppress these items while the move is underway. Once the move is complete, the records may be unsuppressed so that they're viewable in the OPAC once again, but now with the new location that's present. And so being able to use the suppressed colors kinds of things when we're looking at a results list at any given time, it can be handy as a way to just do a double check on certain kinds of things. Maybe you've got a list of items that are all related to a particular subject area and perform the search and being able to see which things are in fact suppressed from view, things that maybe you missed when you were doing the unsuppressed function. Here's an example of a bibliographic record from the cataloging client. Now, I realize that most circ operators don't have the ability to go into the cataloging client, but it's in cataloging that the suppress function is applied to an individual record. There are also some batch options to do that kind of thing, but it usually involves very many records that have been put into a file and are being batch imported. So in this case, maybe we've identified a group of items that we're going to now suppress from view temporarily. So with the cataloging client, it's always been that you would place a check in the box, save the record to the database, and then that would hide it from view. So in this case, the record's not suppressed, but when we now with this new function go into either the circulation client or the cataloging client, we can use this suppress from OPAC option. And you can see here that suppressed has been selected from a drop-down list. When we then go on to the Items tab and scan the barcode, either entering it manually or quite literally using the barcode scanner or wand, then we're able to see that the types of changes that get made. So here, in fact, we can see now that bib ID 2007 was unsuppressed and now is suppressed. And so that will result in that record in the cataloging client actually having this suppressed flag now active, which means that record would then be hidden from view in the OPAC. So if we were in Pick and Scan, and in the circulation client, I have a couple of different ways to get to it. I can use Control-K as a keyboard shortcut, or choose it from the Functions menu, and there we have our Pick and Scan. So there are a variety of the item options that we can be performing, of course, like changing holdings locations, permanent location, all of that sort of thing. Or we simply want to hide something from view, at least for a while. So I change the entry in question, and so I go from no change to suppressed, and then to the Items tab. And in my case, I don't have a barcode scanner or wand to use, so I'm going to enter the barcodes by hand. And now I can either press the Enter key or click on the red check. And from there we see that the title, Alban Berg and the Man and His Music, is now suppressed from view. And if we were to take a look for that item, and here just going back to the OPAC, well, we see 8 results that are displaying, but we're not seeing Alban Berg, the Man and His Music. And so that having now been hidden from view. I could just as easily now unsuppress that particular record. And since I still have the barcode in place, run that through one more time. You can see how it's now changed from suppressed to unsuppressed. And if I return to the OPAC and refresh the page or perform the search again, we should have 9 results then. And indeed we do. There's the item that was missing just a little bit ago. And so it's showing you how we quite literally are able to just hide things when we have a good and sufficient reason to do that. Now, reasons why we might actually go through, and let me just go ahead and close that so I can clear it. There might be a handful of things that I've collected from around the library that don't have a particular relationship. And maybe it's, we're putting together a display unit on some kind of thing, and there's some sort of kind of far-fetched relationship, nothing particularly clear. So we've got a group of barcodes. And so, again, I'm just going to take care of Mr. Berg there, and we'll go with this item. And so you can just see how it's just one after the other navigating through and arranging for this kind of hide the items in these particular entries. So that takes care now of having hidden those 5 items. I can print the list at any time. I can save this to a file so that I know that I've done that particular work. Now, alternately, and here just returning to the slides for a moment, alternately, I can process a file of records. And this file actually is a list of barcodes that are stacked one on top of the other, and that we're able to then go through much more quickly because we're now not having to manually scan or enter each of those barcodes. That file looks something like this. Let me just get hold of it here, where you can just see that it is a list of barcodes stacked one on top of the other. There's a carriage return following each of those barcodes. Now you might get hold of a a list like this by performing an analyzer or access query with particular criteria in mind, or you simply actually manually create this sort of thing. So with that in mind, I'm going to actually navigate to this spot so I can call on that particular file through the circulation client. So again, let's go ahead and just close this. I'll use Control-K to open it up again, having just now cleared out the previous information. I want to, in this particular case, suppress some items that I'm now preparing to move. And I want to navigate to the file, and so I click on the ellipsis to go to where I want to go. And in this particular case, I'm going to move some things from my main library to my grad library, but it's going to take a while for the items to become available again in the graduate library. So hence the suppress in the middle of things. And you can see how I've named that file, done it in such a way that it reminds me what I need to do in order to complete this process accurately. So there, main to grad with suppress. I click on open, and we see the path as it appears here in the select file window. Now I'm just going to go back over to the item options tab to make the other change that I need to do, and that is to say we're now going to the graduate library, and that's going to become the change that we want to have be permanent. And so I've now selected graduate library for both holding location and permanent location. Holding location means it's going to affect the holding record. Permanent location will affect the item record. I'll return to the Items tab and process the file. So it's just going to go through now and take care of all of those items that are in that list, all of those barcodes that are on the list. And you can see how it's moving its way through. And I don't have to go through and handle each item. And since circulation operators are often responsible for staff management or these kinds of things, it gives you a way to be able to manage this sort of activity. And so this one now has completed the process. I've got a list of all of the items. So geopolitics of information changed from main to graduate library. The bib record has been changed from unsuppressed to suppressed. And so that will have applied to all of the 10 or so items that were in that particular list. So that's just, again, showing us a way to use some batch processing to work with larger groups of items or individual items when it's warranted. Questions on this function? If not, let me take us back to the slides and we'll move on to looking at the ISBN/ISSN validation function. Again, this is something that applies to circulation acquisitions, and so some of you may have seen this sort of thing before, except that in circulation it applies very specifically to an on-the-fly circ transfer. So with the ISBN/ISSN validation, we can validate the ISBN or ISSN entries. And there is also this thing that's called EAN. This stands for European Article Number, and the 13 meaning it's a 13-digit number. So the ISBN validation is going to occur for fields that traditionally hold these entries. So the 020 subfield A, the 024 subfield A, holding ISBN entries, the 022 subfield A or 022 subfield Z, holding the ISSN entries. With Voyager 7, this works for bibliographic records only, and there is a normalization function that converts standard numbers into something called canonical format so that the validation can be performed. And so it just means that we're able to include hyphens and suffixes, and Voyager knows what to do with those things. There's a validation algorithm at work to ensure that the correct format is observed throughout. And this validation algorithm looks at three things. The first is the ISBN or ISSN of valid length? ISBN needs to be either 10 or 13 digits today. ISSN needs to be 8. There's also a weighted sum that is verified for each character in the number. There's really quite a complicated mathematical formula that goes into building an ISBN or ISSN. And then last but not least, there's a check digit that is examined to ensure that it is valid. All of this is being calculated on the basis of something called modulus 11, and that's the digit 11, so the two ones put together. It is just making sure that your data entry is clean and correct insofar as it's possible. So in the session preferences, you'll find two checkboxes: bypass ISBN validation, bypass ISSN validation. By default, I believe that they are checked. Now, if you'd like to ensure that your data entry is just as accurate as possible, you'll want to uncheck this so that staff operators are being presented with this kind of thing. I would do a little bit of a training session, though, with your circle operators, just to explain to them about what's happening and how they're able to perhaps make suggestions later to, I entered this particular item, it didn't have the correct ISBN, now what do I do? And so there may be some sort of workflow or policy that you want to put in place in your own library for this kind of thing. So if in this example here, we've got an on-the-fly record being created to issue this item to a library patron. The ISBN 13 was not entered accurately and has caused the standard number error report to pop up. And so that's what we're seeing in this particular window. And so we have some choices. We can, if we confirm that the information we have is accurate, that it's been put in accurately, maybe in fact the book itself is incorrect. So whoever put in an incorrect, maybe they transposed some digits, maybe they missed a digit. Stuff happens out there in the publishing world, sadly, but it is true. If you determine that what you've done is correct, then you can go ahead and click on Save. Otherwise, you probably want to cancel and double check. Make sure that you're getting those that data accurately entered. Now, again, using going back to the participant panel, use the raise hand feature to tell me whether or not you have found this function. If you have, raise your hand. If not, okay. Well, let me show you what this looks like in this particular area. So returning to the circulation client. So let's say that I want to issue an item to a library user. So in this particular case, I'm going to use Mr. Sherman. And so, we've gone through the routine of scanning the barcode if it's on the item and we're not getting anything. Maybe the barcode has fallen off. Maybe some other kind of error has occurred and we're just not getting hold of that particular information. So using the on-the-fly approach, so here the add new bib item, and from here going on to now make the entry in question. So let's just say I'm going to start there with ISBN, and let's see here. "13-digit ISBNs are hard to enter. Enter them correctly." And then we'll go on and put in the author's name. All right, so we've now got that information in. Let's check the holdings. We're going to say that it's in the main collection. Here's the barcode. We have a barcode, just that for whatever reason it's not coming up correctly, and we'll click on OK. Well, there's my standard number error report has popped up. Well, the very first thing to check, does it have 13 digits? So I'm going to cancel and check on that. So we've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. We have 12. And in fact, I intentionally left off the 9 out of the 978. If I click on OK now, it means that the record's going to go, it's accepted, it's fine, and so that validation is really doing a lot to help with ensuring that good data is going on. And now, in fact, it could be that there is a duplicate record in the database, and that a cataloger is going to need to do something about that, and in fact, they are then able to do that sort of thing. Let's just go through that one more time. And so adding the new bib item, this time, again, 978, 8533937. Now, let's see, I've got 3, 6, 9, 12. Okay, I have 13 digits. Now, one of the things about check digits is that they must be very specific to the rest of the number, and that's all part of that modulus 11 kind of thing, where it calculates a particular number. So if it's incorrect, Voyager is going to take note of that and will object and say you've got something that's not quite right. So there we now have our entry. We'll say again main collection, and we have a barcode. Again, we've got it popping up. Okay, so what's up with this? And in fact, again, intentionally I entered the check digit in this case incorrectly. I put in a 2 rather than a 7. And so once I get it in correctly, then the transaction goes through perfectly well. So that is ISBN, ISSN validation. Questions on any of that? Okay. One thing that you may have noticed at the very bottom of my screen, my OPAC is flashing. And it's because of this, your session will end in 2 minutes. And that's something new with Voyager 7 in that a user will get a pop-up message when they've ceased searching the OPAC, and maybe they're making notes, maybe they're chatting to their next door neighbor, whatever it would be. That message pops up when the session has been idle for the number of minutes that the library itself determines. In the case of my demo system here, the default setting is that at 8 minutes, I'm warned that my session's about to close, so it was kind of flashing there in the background for a little bit. So again, just a little bit of additional awareness for you on the kinds of things that are going on there. I'm going to return to the slides and take us off to looking at something actually related to cataloging. But it also relates very specifically to circulation transactions. It's just that the work gets done in the cataloging client. New in Voyager 7 is an option for a cataloging operator to overlay and merge duplicate records. And so in the case where a record has been entered in the on-the-fly approach because the library user or the staff operator could not locate the record. Maybe they missed, again, transposition of characters, whatever kind, they were not able to find it. So they go in and they put in that on-the-fly record. Well, now what? And so we're able to use the cataloging functions to clean that up, and so that we actually have particularly when there's already a record in the database representing the particular item that a library user has in hand. So we're able to have a cataloging operator do this kind of work, and you could, in fact, make it as part of your workflow that when you add in a record on the fly, that you notify the cataloging operators that you did this, and it gives them an opportunity to clean it up immediately if that's something that you want them to do. So there are a lot of things that we can do. We can, and in the case of the or on-the-fly example, this would be an existing record in the database being overlaid by another existing record. So the on-the-fly record being overlaid by a full-blown bibliographic record that's already in the database. So there are a whole bunch of these types of options to look at. So the most critical thing to know about here is that a cataloger can perform this overlay of records of a record for items associated with a cert transaction, and you might not even know that it happened, or you might make a specific request to have that overlay job performed. So let's look at some scenarios. So over time, the circ operators may have entered many on-the-fly records for transactions. And it's from what I understand, this happens more often than we might prefer. As part of a cleanup project, the time has come to associate the transactions with records already in the database, where we have the correct association. Or we have the case where, as part of a database maintenance project, members of the cataloging unit are undertaking to eliminate any duplicate bib records that are suppressed. Could be that they're suppressed because, in the process of withdrawing things, and the circulation operators are involved in working with that withdrawal type of project. And so it gives us a way to be able to pull those records or pull those items out of the database, or be making changes to these various things. So here we have an example in circulation, the charged items index for Michael Tartaglione, and it includes this title, Science of Sound. So at the time that the transaction occurred, the on-the-fly approach was used for entering data so that the item could be charged to Michael. The title that displays is very short and does not show all the usual bibliographic data. In the cataloging client then, we see this is the record that actually got created by a circulation operator through the circulation client. Very short, but there was already a record in the database for that particular item, and so we needed to do something about that kind of thing. And so we perhaps asked the cataloging operator to take care of this kind of thing, and now overlay the record that was used or that was created as a result of the on-the-fly approach, and overlay it with the other one that's already in the database. So we perform that overlay process, and when we go back to circulation, we've now got a full-blown entry for that particular item. And so that particular change then has been made completely, and it's now up to date. We're no longer seeing that brief approach that got put in place. So it does make a difference in terms of how does that data appear, how does it look for us, look to us, what sorts of things are coming through. So just to show you an example of this, returning to the circulation client, and from here I will pull up the record for, let's see here, Mr. Eck. And so here we can see that there are two items, again, that very brief kind of thing. And for whatever reason, we weren't able to to find the details that relate to that particular entry. So now, we've told the cataloging operator that this is something that we want to fix. So I'm going to open the cataloging client. And just waiting for it to finish initializing. There we go. And just going to return to circulation for a moment and close the charged items index. So in this particular case, we're going to look for the title, Midnight Children. You can see that there are 2 records. And you can see also in the database that this is the one that was entered by a circ operator. And in fact, if we go to the History tab, we can see that that record was entered there. That's where it started its life, was at the circulation desk, part of an on-the-fly transaction. Then we have the full-blown bibliographic record. So here's bib 59210. And it's got all of the usual information. It's got subject headings, it's got author title, it's got everything. And so in cataloging now, this is what's referred to as the source record. The content of this record is going to be used to overlay the content of the target record. And this being the target record, this is the one that is now associated with Scott X patron record. And if we look at the hierarchy here, we would actually see there's that charge status that relates to this particular item. So we know that that is in fact something that we needed to do, that it is a charged portion of things. If we look at the hierarchy for the full-blown record, well, we can see that it's got call number, its location, and it's showing as being not charged. So that tells us that we've got some work to do. So I'm going to use the overlay function to take care of this, and I'm going to say in this particular situation, I want to overlay the target record, so that's the on-the-fly record, with the full-blown record. And in this particular case, I'm going to choose not to do any of these other things, the relink holdings and items or delete source bib. I'll just say yes, perform the overlay. So I've now got 2 records that are essentially identical, and there's some work, of course, that I need to do. But the thing, are other cataloging work that I would need to do, and that would be to now delete everything that's associated with this source record, so that it doesn't look like we have 2 copies in the collection when we in fact only have 1. So let me just go ahead and do that. Get hold of that, and delete that, say yes, delete that, say yes, and delete that. So that gives us this remaining item in the collection where it still is showing as being charged. So if we now return to the circulation client and take a look at the record, we now see that we've got the full-blown detail in place. So those are things that you may want to be thinking about working with your cataloging operators, cataloging unit on in terms of being able to make sure that all of the detail is actually put into the database just exactly as it should be. So again, just things to be knowing about. Questions on what I've just done here between cataloging and circulation? The hard part is for the cataloging operators. I can tell you that much. But it is the kind of thing that we need to make sure is done carefully so that it is actually fully representative. I did have one question from Rhonda, who's in today's training. The menu I keep going back to with the little red thingy and the red parrot, is that part of Voyager 7 or is it something that I set up myself? Actually, this is a little add-on tool that was provided by a customer, State Library of Queensland in Australia, a gentleman by the name of, I know his first name is David, but I can't remember his surname right now. This gives us, and this is particularly handy when you're working in multiple databases. And here you can see I've got access to 6 different databases. And so by configuring this little, the menu correctly behind the scenes, I'm able to change the Voyager.ini file automatically simply by selecting the other database name and go on from there. And so that really is it's a very handy little entry. If you take a look in Voyager Support Web Knowledge Base for SLQ Connect, you're going to be able to download this little tool. And then you just set it up, and it just makes things so much easier, particularly when you happen to be working between multiple databases or multiple clients. So if your job is in cataloging and circulation or also in acquisitions, well, this sort of thing is really kind of handy. It's free of charge, and it's sort of take it as it comes. You can see that it actually has a fairly old copyright date of 2002 at this stage of the game, but it sure is handy, easier for me be able to move through these various things. All right, back over to the slides, and just to finish up at this stage of the game, places where you can be learning more. The Circulation User's Guide, to be sure, and particularly checking on things like the editing, hold, and recall requests. I've included the Cataloging User's Guide here just because of the fact that somebody could do that overlay and surprise you. If you're paying attention to those sorts of things, it can be a surprise to you. And the System Administration User's Guide in relation to getting permission to do things like the hold and recall edits. And so making sure that if you yourself don't need to or are not able to go in and work with those sorts of things, then being able to point your own system administrator on campus in that particular direction.